It's Pyram King, and I'm super excited to bring to you another detailed timestamp video guide to Legends of Markovia, an expanded campaign to Curse of Strahd. In this particular video, we're going to be covering the catacombs and the dungeons of Ravenloft. Now, I was going to include the Omen layer, but we got so much to cover here. We're going to do the Omen layer in a separate video. A lot of stuff to cover here. I'm really excited. Before we get started, a huge shout out to all my supporters, including my legendary supporters in January 2023. I migrated from Patreon over to Ko-fi. Many of you came over there and joined me. We've got over 100 legendary members as well supporting me on this epic journey. Now, all of the content in this video guide is now being made available in detailed, beautiful PDF guides for free for the entire community. If you're interested in those free PDF guides, you can find them in the link down below. Now, the members of this receive early playtest versions of these guides, some tokens, theater of the mind art, my voice acting sound files, and I take all the content from the free PDF guides as well as the free battle maps. I put them all into Foundry. I do all the walls, lighting, voice acting, sound files, everything, including the links back to D&D Beyond. Of course, you need to own Curse of Strahd and D&D Beyond for those links to work, as a special thank you to all the donating members for this epic project. If you're interested in becoming a member in this project, making this entire project a reality and helping make PDF guides for the entire community for free, you can. There's a link in the description down below to become a member. A couple important shout outs before we jump into this. You know who they are. My first is DM Andy, my partner in this epic journey. We're going to be looking at one of his gorgeous battle maps here, the Catacombs and the Dungeons battle map. Now, this is a free map. They're available for free on his Patreon. However, if you want the 8K high resolution with the night-day weather effects, he's even doing these atmosphere maps, the Gothic horror, ancient maps. Those packages are available to his Patreon subscribers. So if you want to see more of these great maps free for the entire community, become a Patreon supporter of DM Andy so he can continue to make these gorgeous, gorgeous maps. Also, huge shout out to Blair. None of this stuff in Foundry would be happening without Blair. He is a developer for modules and also creates support and things for Foundry. He is a huge support for our community, helping people as well as helping make these Foundry adventure modules become a reality. If you're interested in making adventures for Foundry or developing your own module for Foundry, reach out to Blair. I've included a link to his Patreon in the description down below. So let's jump into the catacombs and dungeons of Ravenloft. Now, the first area is we're heading down the stairs into the catacombs, and as you head down the stairs here, this is me heading down the stairs, you're going to run into this landing, and this is a small encounter. It's often forgotten, and it's the Western Stair landing. And this encounter is a great encounter because it serves two purposes. Whether the characters are coming down into the catacombs and the dungeons or heading out, this heightens the tension. This is a false pseudo Strahd encounter. There's a glyph of warding here that will trigger a image, an illusion of Strahd here. He appears. You're going to roll a combat encounter. The players are going to think they're going to be fighting Strahd when it's just an illusion. And so as they're burning up their valuable spell slots trying to kill Strahd, the spells and stuff just go through him. He begins to laugh. Your presence here has overstayed its welcome. No gods that you believe in can save you now. And then he just disappears. So the purpose of this is to amp up that tension, also to burn some of those valuable spell slots that your characters have been hoarding, right? So as you head down the stairs here, again, down this gorgeous battle map, you can see all the cobwebs and stuff. You come through this door, and you head into the Braizer Room here. And we've got these two statues here. They're iron golems. They're just statues of horses and everything. What's interesting about this room is two things. Not only does this room provide teleportation, and we've made some changes to Legends of Markovia, but it's a combat encounter only if the players actually provoke it, right? So the players have to do something to provoke a combat encounter. These things are not here to attack the players. They're here to protect the brazier and the hourglass that floats above it. Now let's talk about this. We have actually got a theater of the mind map for this, 78. Here's the brazier, and you can see it here. And so the way the Braizer Room works is there's an hourglass floating above this brazier with this colorful fire in the middle of it with the two giant iron statues of the knights on horse on either side. And there's some text underneath the brazier, and it reads, "Cast a stone into the fire. Violet leads to the mountain spire. Orange to the castle peak. Red if lore is what you seek. Green to where the alter ego hides. Indigo to the master's bride. Blue to the ancient magic's womb. And yellow to the master's tomb." Now each one of these, there's a balls, colored balls surrounding the brazier, and each one of these colored balls, if you cast it in the fire, creates a teleportation to that location. So it's giving you clues to where those locations are. Now we've made some changes to rules as written to fit more within Legends of Barovia. Let's cover that briefly right here. So red goes to Ravenloft study, that's rules as written, K37. Orange stays in Ravenloft, that goes to the Tower Peak, K60. Yellow Ravenloft, Strahd's Tomb, K86. All of that's rules as written. Now the green goes to Vlaki. Rules as written, it still goes to Vlaki. If rules as written, it goes to the Coffin Maker shop. But as you know, in Legends of Barovia, if you've seen the Vlaki guide, we've added Vasily von Holtz's manor. That's Strahd's alter ego. And in that manor, there is a secret room with a teleportation circle. So this is how Strahd teleports to and from Vlaki and disguises himself and masquerades in his alter ego as Vasily. So it takes him to the secret room there. The blue takes you to the Amber Temple, which is rules as written, but we changed the location in the Amber Temple to the Breach Vault X33D. Now, if you've been following Legends of Barovia, Strahd had gone to the Amber Temple and he destroys the Amber Sarcophagus and frees the vampire Dark Vestige. So X33 with that broken Amber Sarcophagi, that vampire is free. Strahd did that. This takes you to that Breach Vault X33D instead of, I think rules as written was like X42 or something like that. The indigo takes you to the Abbey of St. Markovia outside into the graveyard. That's area S7. It takes you to the graveyard because remember, the abbot is creating that flesh golem bride for Strahd. So Strahd arrives via teleportation, and he arrives in the graveyard outside. And then last but not least, we have the Slinka Gates. That's the violet stone teleportations to the Slinka Gates. It's important to note that Strahd arrives on the outside of the gates. Remember, Lamilla's tower is there. She's commandeered that tower, and she is planning to become the queen of Barovia. That makes for some high-level tension, some fun, different gameplay there. Really like that storyline. Now, unless the players damage this cauldron, this brazier of fire, or the hourglass above, which ticks off how long that teleportation works, or they harm the statues. The statues are just there to protect the room. They're just statues. They will not do anything unless the players had to provoke, do something, break it, attack, or do something. So this is the Braizer Room there, and we've got this nice little theater of the mind map here with some animation. K78. Let's go back to the dungeon. And when the player leaves this room, we're going to go out to the balcony here. And the balcony overlooks the torture pit, and which drops down about 10 feet. And one of the things I want to talk about the torture chamber, we got a theater of the mind map for that as well, is when you're up on that balcony looking down to this torture chamber, if you are following Legends of Barovia in the campaign guide, we have some Gothic horror rules, some additional rules. Some of these borrow from the Dungeon Master's Guide. And this is one of those great areas in which one of those rules triggers, which is the despair check. You imagine the players come to this balcony. You know, they look down at this murky, nasty filled water, and there's protruding out of the waters, there's like an Iron Maiden, some torture devices, and the players are starting to realize what this room is. Here's a balcony for people to watch. Perhaps Strahd, most likely Strahd, watch the torturing, right? And so what happens is, as the players gaze into this abyss, all of a sudden they fall into this hypnotic state. Vivid and ghastly images flood their minds of nightmares centuries ago, of countless faces screaming in agony, suffering, being tortured in this room. Their screams echoing through the chamber, and it's just exhausting and draining to hear this. It's just so moving and depressing. This would be definitely one of those times where you're going to have your players roll a despair check to figure out they're in. You know, you're in the dungeons. You're down in the torture chamber of Castle Ravenloft. If there was ever a time to roll a despair check, you're sitting there looking at this ancient torture chamber where countless people have been tortured. You're certainly going to be rolling a despair check here. Now, it drops down 10 feet into this murky water, and this is where you've got the 6 Strahd zombies. Here they are. If you want to run combat in Theater of the Mind, you can. We've got the 6 zombies here, or you can do it in the battle map. Here they are in the battle map. I'll get them all fired up so you can see them. There they are. So if you jump down here, well, I didn't mean to jump everybody down there. I'll jump down there, and I'll be taking all these zombies on myself. So there they all are. It's going to be an interesting fight here because you've got some hazards in the water. I imagine the players trying to move through that water. It's going to be difficult. It could be hazardous terrain. There could be situations where some of the things sticking out of the water make it difficult, or tripping hazards. Think about how do you want to run that combat counter down here in the torture chamber. That's area K76. Now, out of the torture chamber, you have this hallway which leads to the dungeons, which actually makes a lot of sense. You have your dungeons, you go there and you get your prisoners on the dungeons, you take them down the hallway to the torture chamber. Strahd sits on the balcony and gets to watch the torture happen, and then they lead if they're still alive, they lead them back to the dungeons. Now, this is where we're going to be using Monk's active tile trigger if you're using Foundry. And you can see these invisible areas that mark where I've put the triggers at. Now, it's important. They're invisible, but when you're prepping your campaign, make sure that these areas are invisible. I have them set up so when you click on them, they are visible, but you don't want to make them visible because the players will see that they're traps. Now, let me explain how these are set up. These are automatic triggers that will trigger the teleportation trap that will teleport a player to the cell. What happens is the player is walking through the water. There's a pressure plate under the water. If the player stands on it, the player character stands on it, they'll fall through the water. There'll be a big splash of water, and they'll be teleported to one of the cells. Now, I've set it up, and you can change this. If I click on the Monk's Active Tile triggers, you can see it. I have it set up to a 25% chance that it triggers. I don't like to, this is the kind of thing where the players are going to go across these traps. And you can see 2 of them, they've got to cross the trap. They don't even know that they're there. So I ran the percentages lower. You could change the percentages. I think 25% works really well. Let's see if I trigger one of these. So here I am. I've dealt with these damn zombies. I'm going to walk down the hallway. You hear the splash. It all happens automatically. I'm teleported in there. The other players will see I'll be missing. Now, if I go back and do this again, I might not trigger that one. See, I didn't trigger that one. Maybe I'll trigger out the next one. Don't trigger the next one. Look, I didn't trigger this one. So it's 25% chance. Oh, I just triggered one. So this makes it really fun. As the players are going through, one player will disappear. There'll be a big splash. The player will just disappear. They'll be teleported into one of these dungeons here, dungeon cells. So let's talk about the dungeon cells. By the way, that was area K73, the dungeon hall. We're going to do the north dungeon first. I'll talk about the slide that works there, the slide trap, and then we'll do the south dungeon. So the north dungeon cell, each one of these dungeons, by the way, cells I included the same generic description unless there's something unusual about that cell. So let's just cover that generic description because it's the same for each one. So the air is thick and humid, carrying a foul, musty smell. Remember, this dungeon is flooded, and I've got a dungeon cell here. Here's the dungeon cells. Carrying a foul, musty odor. Opaque, murky water fills the small dungeon cell, emitting a repulsive stench. Floating objects within the water make it difficult to discern what they may be, causing hesitation to look closely. I mean, who wants to look at anything floating in murky water in a dungeon, right? The water is about 4 to 5 feet in depth, while the cell itself measures 10 foot in square. The thick iron bars are rusted with age, span the opening, measuring 1 inch thick. The bars are 1 inch thick. The cell doors are locked, but the lock is submerged about a foot beneath the water. If you stand in the cell, the floor feels, in this particular one, K74A, the floor feels uneven, unstable, shifting beneath you. The surface seems maybe numerous small rocks or stones. In this particular cell, which is this one right here, we're in 75A, there is a treasure in the cell, and these are Strahd coins. There is, and I prefer to roll because I like rolling. Let me just clear this up, the chat log up. I like to roll for coins. I always like it to be random. So I did 5D100 plus 1,000. So there's 1,276 Strahd coins. Let's just take a look at what those coins look like really quick. I have a picture of them here. There they are. These Strahd coins are worth 2 gold each. And they have the picture of Strahd's face printed on them. Now, if you've watched the earlier guides to Ravenloft and you know about these Strahd coins, just bear with me here. The Strahd coins, Strahd uses them to scry, not on the person that's holding the coin, but the actual location of the coin. Think of these as like a GPS tracker. It's a way for Strahd to monitor the concentration of wealth and the transactions of goods and services. So he can monitor these coins, where they are, how many there are in any one location, if they're moving or not. So he can keep track of not only the monetary system, but the economy and wealth in there. So he doesn't know who has them. He just knows that some of them are moving. So there's a bunch here in the cell. In this particular case, there's 1,276. A player can scoop up about 100 coins every minute. Now, the cell right below it is similar in nature. In this case, there's fewer Strahd coins, only 3D100 plus 200 of the Strahd coins, but the door can't shut. It's like stuck open. The lock is rusted and broken. So this is the one cell that's just kind of open. You can't shut it. You can only open it. It won't shut. The lock doesn't work. Nothing else of interest in here. K74B. We have K74C. That's the next cell south. In this particular cell, we've got a rotting corpse hanging on to the bars. And if you look at the corpse, you're going to see in a rotting leather sheath a long sword, and there's some pouches, leather pouches along the belt. So there's a long sword on this corpse. There's also a potion of heroism. So getting into that cell and getting into those pouches, I mean, that's a nice item to have, especially here in Castle Ravenloft. The next cell is another empty cell. 74D is empty. And then we get up to 74E, and I will cover this later. This is the cell where the slide trap finishes. I'll talk about that when we finish the northern cells. The next cell is another empty cell. Again, each of these cells has that generic description as well as how to get in and out of the cells, the DC 20 checks, dexterity checks, the strength checks to break in and out of these cells to make it easier for you as the DM when you're running this. The next one, we have an encounter. We have the Gray Ooze, which is, look at this thing. This thing is just, this is just nasty, right? I can't even imagine this, right? You get into this cell, and there's this unusual sensation coming from the floor, as if the floor underneath this murky water is moving. That's a Gray Ooze. The whole bottom of this floor is this Gray Ooze. The Gray Ooze, while it's underwater, remember it's about 4 to 5 feet, is invisible. So you've got this nasty attack with the Gray Ooze in this cell. These things are nasty. They don't have a lot of hit points, But I'm telling you, they're one of the things that you just don't want to deal with, especially if you can't see it and it's under the water here. So you got the gray ooze here. The last cell, and what's really nice, and again, I want to point this out. DM Andy's level of detail is just crazy. So you can see in this last cell, there's kind of a light coming out from underneath the water in a shadow of a sword. So he brings those elements to life right within the map. This last one is the long sword that's under the water. So if you're in the cell, towards the rear of the cell, there's a luminous blade observed submerged under the water. Now that sword is a really cool sword. This is rules is written. It's a Crusader short sword. It's a +1 short sword, sentient short sword. You have to be a good creature to attune to it. Takes about a minute. And also, once per day, you can cast Crusader's Mantle spell, which is really cool. So this is a great short sword. Rules is written. Great treasure to have here in the cells. So that covers 74, which are the northern cells here. Now we're going to talk about this slide trap. We've got a slide trap here. I'm going to take my character up to the upper hall and show you how this works. So if the characters happen to have north through the hallway, this is K81. In the middle of the hallway, there's a trap door. Now the way I set this up is you can see this orange square here. And so if I was running this in Foundry, this is not an automatic trigger. I would wait for the characters to pass over it. Maybe you get 2 characters in there at the same time. And what you're going to do is you're going to hit spacebar and pause the game. You're going to say, as soon as you pause it. Now, if they're not looking for traps, remember, it's important to mention this room. The passage has been hewn from rock, low ceiling, reaches about 6 feet high. The ground is shrouded in a thick fog that obscures visibility. While the walls are damp, the air feels moist, the sound of dripping water echoes faintly in the room. So there's this ground fog over the floor here. So it's going to be hard for them to see this trap. So again, the way I would work this trap, and the way I have it set up here, because you want to get as many people in this trap as you can, is just let the players moving down the hall. As soon as you get 1 or 2 players in here, hit pause. You hit pause so the players can't move, right? They're paused. Then what you're going to do is double click on this. Check this out. This is really cool. So you double click in this square. You as the GM. Players can't. Only you. The player slides down the chute. You've got a description here. You fall into a chute of polished black marble and slide into the darkness. You plunge into a dungeon cell of murky smelling water that's 5 feet deep. The trap door high on the northern wall slams shut. So they slide down this slide. You can see this black slide. They actually physically slide down and boop, they land here into this cell. So this is called the end of the ride. That's 74E. That's that trap here. So again, wait till you get 1, 2. You get there's 4 squares in here. So you could technically get 4 people falling down and sliding into that trap. Very, very, very cool. Set that up with Monk's active tile trigger. Again, the DM, you need to double click in the square. Pause the game, double click in the square. That triggers the trap to send them down below. All right, let's move on to the southern. Let's not trigger a trap again. We're going to move into the southern cell. This is 75, the south dungeon here, and we've got 8 cells. First cell is empty, like all the other cells. The next cell we have down is 75G. We have the hanging bard in 75G. Now, let me just get him out of here. I don't know why I'm doing that. There we go. The hanging bard, 75G. There's a rope with the bard hanging upside down. His head is submerged in this water. His arms are bound behind him. He's clearly dead. And that's all there was to it. Rules was written. I thought it would be really cool as if that hanging bard is actually a Strahd zombie. Now, the way I would run this is as the players get close to this hanging body, this hanging bard from the ceiling, as soon as they get closer, open up the cell door, the zombie comes to life. You're going to roll initiative. The zombie can only make a bite attack. It's flailing around in the water. Its arms are tied behind its back. It's trying to bite the characters as it's flailing upside down. So you could actually also include, if you wanted to, one of those declining DCs. I like those to see if the rope breaks. So on the zombie's turn, or the start of the zombie's turn, you're going to roll a D20. You can start the DC at like an 18. If you don't make an 18, the rope doesn't break. Then the next time it's a 17. The next time it's a 16. Eventually the rope snaps, the zombie falls in the water, and the zombie's loose, attacking the player. So I made the Hanging Bard a zombie. We get down to the next cell here, and we have the Dead Wizard. Now, rules as written, the Dead Wizard in this cell is just shackled to the wall, and you can tell that Strahd has fed on this wizard. I thought it would be cool to make the wizard a vampire spawn. And in this case, when you get close to the wizard, the wizard's head kind of looks up, but it's shackled to the wall. So you run your initiative, but on the vampire spawn, it needs to try to break free. So it's going to use one of its actions. It's got to make a DC 18 strength check to try to break free of those shackles. If not, the players can have their, it can only bite. I mean, arms are shackled to the wall. So I would run that vampire spawn shackled to the wall trying to break free. Again, very cool. 75E is the empty cell. And then we get over to the prisoner cell, which is 75A. Now here we have a fairly big departure from rules as written. In rules as written, Emil the werewolf has been captured and he's down here in the cell. But in Legends of Barovia, if you are running the merchant player background hook from the campaign, that is a player hook in which one of the players' family members or friend was a merchant who had gone to Barovia to try to retrieve or acquire a rare bottle of wine from the Wizards of Wine and has been lost and missing. And part of the player's person quest is to locate this family member or this friend who has disappeared in the legendary lands of Barovia. Now, if they get down here in the dungeon, this is the merchant. So as soon as the players get into the southern dungeon, they're going to hear the merchant's going to be rattling on the bars, and he's going to say, thank heavens, you found me at last. I had lost all the hope of ever seeing daylight. I had been trapped here in Barovia, attempting to discern word of my whereabouts to you. At first I was held captive in the castle by Lord Strahd's minions, confined to a room without permission to leave. The Dark Lord has sought a gem and has repeatedly questioned me about its whereabouts, though I have no knowledge of any gem. Despite my insistence of my ignorance about this gem, he eventually grew tired of my denials and have thrown me into the dungeon either to refresh my memory or to leave me to my fate. I assure you I know nothing of this gem he seeks. Please help me escape this dreaded place. I'm relieved to see you. We must act quickly. Barovia is far from safe. This is the family member or friend who's the merchant. The gem he's speaking about, remember in the Wizards of Wine, they were at the Wizards of Wine, captured by Strahd, brought here, and Strahd has questioned them. Strahd is searching for one of the Fey gems, in this case the green gem that was at once hidden in the Wizards of Wine. Now, the merchant obviously doesn't know anything about this gem and has been captured here and now has been thrown into this dungeon. So this gives the players an opportunity to try to plan the escape of their family member. And I would run this person as a commoner, but depending on the backstory that you might want to do, you can change the stat block, what have you. Now, if you are not running the merchant player background hooked, I would still make it the merchant. The same story, except for he's not connected at all to the party. In this case, there's a man, middle-aged, grasping on the bars of the cell, shuddering uncontrollably as he struggles to keep his teeth from chattering. His clothes are completely drenched head to toe. Upon hearing your presence, he shouts, "Who's there? Please, help, release me." Same thing. Still the merchant, still got lost, is stuck in Barovia. Strahd captured him, wants to know about a gem. He doesn't know anything. If you free him, help him out, he will grant you a reward, a generous reward if you free him. In both cases, the merchant, whether he's tied to the player background hook in a family friend or part of your family or a complete stranger, he does have a strong and good relationship with the Martikov family. So, because he's helped the Martikovs. Remember, he's at the Wizard's Wine. He's helped the Martikovs dealing with the blight problem. Helped them dealing with the Druids. So there's a common bond there. So if he does escape and he's still temporarily stuck in Barovia or permanently stuck in Barovia, he certainly would be welcome to the Blue Water Inn or back to the Wizard's Wine to live or stay with the Martikov family. So that's something to keep in mind as it's tied to the merchant quest, the Martikov and the Wizards of Wine. All right, we have another forgotten treasure up here. Again, this is some more Strahd's coins in K75B. We get up to the next one here. We have an empty cell at K75C. And the last cell in the southern dungeon is K75D. And again, if we look at Diamandi, if you look very closely, you can see faintly, there's a shadow in the water or something. Yes, it's a battle axe. This is a pretty creepy one. I mean, this one kind of makes me a little creeped out. So as you're standing in this cell, or you go in the cell, beneath the surface, you can detect the presence of something. I can imagine you're kicking something with your feet, and then you realize it's a dead body clad in plate armor. Now, the dead body is the remains of a dwarf fighter. The armor the plate armor is just rusted, but next to the dwarf, there's a battle axe nearby, so there is a weapon in here. So again, we've got a lot of treasure in here. I changed it all to Strahd coins. We've got a couple combat encounters, 2 weapons, 2 magical. We got the 1 magical weapon, the battle axe, as well as the other sword, and that potion of heroism. All of that is in this dungeon, along with all these traps. So this place is just, it depends on where you step, and you're going to be the entire time through the torture chamber, throughout the dungeon. You're anywhere from 3 feet to 5 feet of mucky, nasty water. You really want to lean into that. The players are starting to get cold. You could put positions into it where, as they're searching down through the water or feeling stuff, there could be rolling certain checks at disadvantages, trying to open the lock underwater. You can certainly elevate this. You could also consider this might be a good time, depending on how long they're stuck in these dungeons or if they get stuck or what's going on, is to have a random encounter. If there was a place to have a random encounter on this particular map, I would certainly think about having it in one of these dungeons or dungeon cells if they're trying to get in or out or they're getting trapped, complicating the issue, right? Random encounters are changing up the environment, complicating the issues, creating more problems for the players to solve. So I would think about having one of those in this location. By the way, here's the dungeon hall. So if you're standing in the dungeon hall where those traps are, this is what it looks like as you're moving through the dungeon hall. Now that brings us up here to the catacombs, which is really exciting. So we've covered the entire west side of the map, the dungeons, the torture chamber, the Braizer Room. I said Brazier, didn't I? And then the long hallway with its sliding trap. Now we're getting into the catacombs. So let's talk about the catacombs here. We're going to go through all the different catacombs, all the different crypts, because there are some changes in here into Legends of Barovia. So let's take a look. We actually have the catacombs here. Let's take a look about the catacombs. Here they are. This is what the catacombs look at with a little Theater of the Mind map here. And the catacombs, a couple of things to take note of as the players in the catacombs. The floor is covered with bat guano and the ceiling is moving because this whole ceiling is where the bats are sleeping. The bats are going to fly out through that shaft K18A and leave, every evening. So you have these bats on the ceiling, guano. It smells foul, just nasty down here in the catacombs. The one thing to think about here, we'll talk about the teleportation traps in a second. The one thing to think about is the doors to the crypts are stone doors. They fit very, very tight. They're 3 feet wide, 5 feet tall, 3 inches thick. Removing the stones are going to require an action and a strength check, DC 15. This is important for a couple of reasons. Number one is it's going to take time for the players to try to open up a crypt to get into a crypt. It's just not a door where they unlock the door and they open it up. They're going to have to take a strength action, try to pry open that stone to get in the crypt. The other reason that's important is these crypts are super deadly during combat with Strahd, because Strahd, remember, he can use his action to walk through walls. So he could go stand in these crypts, and these crypts allow him to be right next to the party without the party knowing it to make some attacks. So the crypts, in my opinion, is one of the most deadly areas to have your Strahd encounter in, because he can just stand in a crypt and the players can't get to him. They don't even know he's inside one of those crypts, and he can just phase right through a wall. He's standing right behind the party, grabs one of the players, pulls him out of the hole. So he's going to start stripping the players away from the party and taking them out. Crypts are highly, highly deadly for that. So let's go through the crypts. Really excited about this. All right. So here we are in the crypts, and we're going to talk about door number 1. Now, door number 1 is a fake crypt, and I set this up in Foundry so that you can share this. You can share the scene. This part's secret, so the players can see this. It says crypt number 1, the unknown. Here lie the ones who walk the path of pain and torment. It is actually just a door to this carved out through the rock tunnel. So crypt 1 is not actually a crypt. Crypt 2 is rules as written. This is the court artist. By the way, I want to point out is there are 2 books that the player handouts the players are going to get through the campaign. The first one is called Lords of Barovia. This is an official account of the history of Barovia from year 1 to year 347 of the different kings and lords and royalty as told through who's buried in the crypt. And in the back of that player handout are several crypts, including who's buried there. That's a great handout for the players to have because it gives them some context to the history of Barovia, and it informs them who will be buried in certain crypts, which is important. I'll tell you why in a second. The second book is called The Court of Ravenloft. And the Court of Ravenloft is from 347, the time of when Prince Strahd came to power, to year 355, a few years after he became a vampire. And that book focuses more on the von Zarovich family, as well as some of the people that were in his royal court or people that worked in his royal court. And it's related to, and it's told through who's buried in the crypt. So this crypt has a bunch of really ancient people that are buried there, pre-Strahd era. And then you have a bunch of the crypts that are the Strahd's court era. And so they're both in there. Both those books together collectively tell the story of Barovia and the rise of Strahd and his relationships. But they do 2 things. Number 1, they tell you who's buried in the crypt. They also, the players can use some deductive reasoning. Is this an ally of Strahd? Is this an enemy of Strahd? Is it safe to go in this crypt? Is there any treasure to go in this crypt? Is there any secrets in this crypt? So there's some clues there that can help the players to decide if they even want to open one of these crypts. You may find, because there are 40 crypts, the players are not going to want to open all of them. And there's a good chance that they're going to be worn out and tired or under combat, that it's just not going to be worth it to open all the crypts. So the book allows them, those 2 books allow them to prioritize where they may want to go or what they may want to look for. So crypt number 2 is the court artist. This one is found in the court of Ravenloft. This is rules as written. The only thing I've done is change the description text. Crypt 3 is rules as written. This is the purveyor of antiques and imports. Again, there's nothing of interest in here, but that's what it says on the door. So if they want to break in there, there's a description. There's not much in there. Crypt 4 is a prince. This is from the Lords of Barovia. This prince will manifest itself as a ghost and try to take possession of the characters and then try to kill that character if it possesses the character. Again, these first crypts are rules as written. Crypt 5 is the friend and member of the Barovian wine distillers. Again, this is from the Court of Ravenloft. And again, there's nothing of interest in here. So all these crypts here, which are in the north, really there's nothing here of value in these crypts. It's not until we get to the last one, And I'm going to show you this. This is pretty cool. The last one over here, which is Crypt 6. And this is St. Markovia's crypt. Now, if the players most likely have been to the Abbey, they've learned about St. Markovia. She marched on Ravenloft to try to defeat Strahd, and she was killed. She's buried in this crypt. Now, the crypt has a poison trap. And I set up the poison trap, the arrows here. This is a monk's active tile trigger. I did it the same way as before. I set this up to be a 75% trigger. I think it's 75%. Yeah, 75% chance of triggering. You can change that. So if a player walks into this and they trigger it, let's see if I trigger it. You heard those arrows. And they're going to take that hit in there. Now, I also have it so that you can press this button up here to toggle on and off this trap. So if the players, detect the trap after one player's hit or whatever happens, they can disarm the trap, and you can just hit this, double toggle this. And what that does is it's just turning off the active state of this tile. So you can turn off the state using this here. That'll toggle the active or disactive state of this trap. Or you can just do it manually by just clicking on here and activating it. Inside the crypt, when the door opens, the air within the crypt permeates with a fragrance of roses. If the character disturbs St. Markovia remains out of the dust haze, a ghostly woman dressed as a nun from the Abbey materializes. Her form is so faint that only a fragment of her face can be discerned. The apparition whispers faintly, "The vampire must be defeated. Use me as your weapon." And like that, she disappears. She will be giving you her thigh bone. What's left there after she disappears is Markovia's thigh bone. This is a treasure. Rules is written. Thigh bone is a great magical weapon for melee attack. It does do radiant damage, which is something that Strahd definitely doesn't like. So it's a great weapon here. You got to get through that trap here to make that happen. Now let's jump over here. We're at crypt number 7. Again, rules is written. In this case, we've got gargoyles in here. This one's, the door of this crypt is open. You don't have to open it. It's kind of cracked and on the ground. You can see it here. And we've got some gargoyles in here that will attack the player. So players go in there, they're going to have a little gargoyle problem. We get over crypt number 8. And this is Duchess Dilisnya. Now, this is interesting because what we've done in Legends of Barovia, this is the crypt that belongs to the Vistani woman, again, 400 years ago, that was the lover of Strahd's father, the king, who gave birth to Leo the Lion. Now, we know that storyline. Leo the Lion is the son of Strahd's bastard's brother. He is the bastard son of the king, who had an affair with a Vistani woman from the Tesser Pools. And Leo fell in love with Lavina Walker, the Lady Walker's great-great-great-great-grandmother. And Lavina Walker's convinced by Strahd to murder Leo. And so when you find Leo's bones, you can find her diary as well as Leo's bones in the Walker manor. Well, this is the mother. And what's interesting about this is we added to Legends of Barovia, and that guide will be coming up, is the entire pillar stone of Ravenloft is hollowed out with a dungeon. And there's a secret entrance. It's a dungeon crawl, secret entrance into Ravenloft. And she in her death, she knows it. Now, when you walk into this room, there's going to be the crypt. There's this tapestry in the back wall. And the tapestry is interesting because it connects the Vistani and the King Vonderbucks, Strahd's father, because the tapestry will have the embroidery of the Vonderbucks family crest on it with a a raven looking down over the crest. And there's some words written in Vistani. So a player needs to either understand the Vistani language or be part of the Vistani blood if you're running that player hook. They'll be able to discern, and it says, the Stahbal family holds the key to the concealed entrance in Ravenloft. So if you don't know about that concealed entrance in Ravenloft, She's giving you a clue. The clue is written into the tapestry. That is actually in Crypt 14, where the secret entrance into Ravenloft through the Pillar Stone is. The reason she knows that is that entrance to the Pillar Stone is across from the Tesser Pools, and it's how she, prior when she became the lover of the king, how she snuck in and out of this castle. She knew the secret entrance, this ancient entrance into the Pillar Stone that goes up to the Pillar Stone into Ravenloft. Very, very cool. Little bit of lore tying it all together. I really like this. The next crypt we have is Crypt 9. This is Pidlwick, and we made another fun change here. Now, you know that you're going to run into Pidlwick's ghost in the Rooms of the Weeping. Right outside of his study, you'll run into Pidlwick's ghost. Then there's Pidlwick 2, which is the clockwork mechanical version of Pidlwick, who's up in the spire. Now, if you come to Pidlwick the ghost, has given the players a clue that he's got a treasure in his crypt. Pidlwick was the court jester, the court jester fool of Ravenloft. If the party arrives here, Pidlwick the ghost materializes in his crypt, and he asks the party the following riddle. My suits are many, but they're not real, just part of my grand appeal. My numbers, faces all deceive. You'd be wise not to believe. What am I? So the answer is the deck of illusion, but you want to give your characters, your players, a little bit more broad. So if they could say magic cards or a deck of cards with magic or any reference to cards that are magical, right? So I would give every character, every player, one chance to attempt to answer. If they say magic cards, deck of illusion, deck of magic cards, all of a sudden a small wooden box appears on top of the marble slab, and it's the deck, a full deck of illusions. So the players have to earn that by answering the riddle. So I thought that would be a fun addition rather than just having it there. So that's the Pidlwick Crypt number 9. We get to Crypt number 10. We have, again, rules as written. We've got the 3 jeweled necklace here worth 750 gold pieces. And then we get to one of my favorite crypts again is Countess Tasha Petronova von Hapsburg. Now, rules as written, it's just Tasha Petronova. She was from the Abbey. But again, Legends of Barovia, she marries Count von Hapsburg, and she becomes the Countess of Barovia. Now, the von Hapsburg family ruled over Barovia before Strahd came. And she is killed. She is murdered along with her daughter, Contessa Sarah, at Krusk by the Turk forces. Now, in here, you're gonna, you'll see her crypt, and there's a description of this crypt. But there's nothing here. It says the center of the crypt holds a marble slab. It's empty, save for a necklace. In fact, it seems like the crypt has never been used. She's actually buried in her crypt, in a crypt at the Abbey. So this is her crypt that was constructed for her, but since she was murdered at Krusk with her daughter, she's actually buried at the Abbey. And she gives you this clue. So there's a necklace of the sun that lays on the marble slab. If the necklace requires attunement it belongs to Countess Tasha. If you put on this necklace, the necklace of the sun, here we go, right here, it gives you a +1 to Constitution saving throws. So a character who picks up the necklace hears a ghostly female voice, and it whispers the following message. To find my true resting place, journey to the west, where healers once built their sanctuary. Look for a bed of roses and search beneath their petals to uncover the treasure that connects to the heir of Barovia. The key to solving the puzzle lies in the petals themselves. Some have 1, some have 2, and others have 4, while the remaining petals have none. Use this knowledge to unlock the secret that lies within. Now, if the players have been to the Abbey and they have tried to solve the rose petal problem at that crypt, which is where she actually is buried, it's a pretty difficult puzzle. She's giving you a clue here on how to solve that puzzle. Inside that crypt is the ring, the Hapsburg dynasty ring, that will help you locate the true heir to the throne. that is an entire expanded quest line of the Hapsburg Dynasty quest line if you decide to run that. But that ring's there, and you're going to need to get that ring to find the heir to the throne. But otherwise, if you're not, there's this cool necklace that gives you +1 to Constitution saving throws. Okay, the next one we have over here. Oh, we got another one, cool one here. Let me get my guy. Where's my guy? Where am I? Here I am. I'm going to just bring me out here. There we go. The next one we have over here is the King Troitsky. Now, in here, there are no bones atop the marble slab in this crypt, only a steel helmet with a visor shaped like an angry face. Now, if you go in here and you try to remove this is like one of those scenes from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, you have to, if you want to grab this helmet, you got to put something on there of equal weight, which is about 10 pounds. If you don't, all of a sudden you're going to trigger this trap and the room is going to fill up with gas. Now, the way that I used this again, Monk's Active Tile trigger, this is the double click to trigger. So when the players are here or just outside of it, you as the dungeon master, as soon as they grab that and if they trigger the trap, you're just going to double click in this box and it's going to trigger the trap. Here we go. It's going to fill the room up full of gas. You can see the poisonous gas. And that character, if he has any hit points, I don't think I have any hit points left. No, I don't. He'll suffer some hit points, and there's going to be a message. So let me just give myself some hit points to see me suffer. You don't want to see me suffer, guys. Come on. Let me clean this up here. Here we go. I'll run it again. So here's let's close this. Here's the chat log. So you just double click in here. It says a poisonous gas pours out of the slab's hollow interior and fills the crypt and the area just outside. You begin to choke. So I automatically took 15 points of damage from here. So that works really easy. It's really fun. Just double click and fills up with gas. The gas automatically dissipates and the damage is done. Crypt 13 is rules as written. This one has the gunpowder, the musket, and the silver musket balls in there. There is a link to the Dungeon Master's workshop on if you want to on how to run firearms in here. Crypt 14 is the Stahbal in the Bach. Stahbal in the Bach. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It drops you down into the pit down below, and this is where the secret entrance to the dungeon within the Pillar of Ravenloft is. Now, the players can climb down here. I just made it a pit, and I made this visible, so the players should be able to see this. They open it up. There's a square shaft, 10 feet in diameter. It plunges straight down to the darkness. The players can attempt to climb down, and if they do climb down, it'll take you right down into here. Now, this is, in this area, this pit down here, there's all these coffins. In the coffins, there are the whites in the coffins. So if you don't screw with the coffins, you're not going to have any problem. It's this pit here that's got the secret entrance that enters into the cave, the caverns, and the dungeons within the Pillar of Ravenloft. So if you're coming into the Ravenloft this way, you'll eventually come up through the dungeons, through the pillar, the big stone pillar of Ravenloft, and you'll end up here. And you're going to crawl out of here to get into the catacombs. So this is where the secret entrance in and out of Ravenloft through the pillar is down in here. And we're going to show you how this works because this thing is crazy. By the way, let's just talk about this. If you're down in here in the vault, it's musty. The ceiling's about 10 feet high. The room has got an irregular shape. It just reeks of decay and flesh. Scattered throughout the room is 15 stone coffins, each with its head positioned towards the north. The floor is covered with human bones, rusty swords, lending to a very grisly atmosphere. Now, if a character, we're going to talk about when the character teleports here. I'm going to show you how that works. I got that set up. It works really cool. However, if you screw around with these coffins, one of the whites will come out and start messing with you, and you don't want to do that. So if you open up one of these things, you're going to get one of these guys coming out to attack you. In addition, every time a white is killed in this vault, some of the bones knit together, forming 2d6 animated human skeletons. I have them all lined up over here. So if you kill a white in this vault, you're going to roll 2d6 let's see how many I got. 7. You're going to drag over 7 of these skeletons, and the players are going to be fighting these skeletons. So 2d6 worth of skeletons. So every white that dies out of these crushed bone skeletons come. Now, important note about these skeletons, they don't have a range attack. They only pick up one of the rusted short swords and start coming at you. So this is really going to be the skeletons aren't that big of a deal. The problem is numbers. So it's going to be an attrition. This is one of those, in Dungeons and Dragons, it's an action economy. So, the higher you roll, the more frustrating it's going to be. So you might want to adjust this a little bit so you don't get into a situation where you've got too many of these skeletons in this room. All right, let's jump back up to where we were. We did that teleportation in that hole. The next one we have is Crypt 15. This is Kazan. And this is a change too here. Now in Legends of Barovia, and if you read the book Fanes of Barovia, as well as the book Myth of Kazan, both player handouts, you'll realize that Kazan is Xanthar, who's lost his memory. And there's a whole reason why, and the storyline behind that's very interesting. Kazan this is Kazan's tomb. Now Kazan is alive, is the Lich, but his physical body before he transformed into Lich is here. Now, in the center of the room, there's a tattered robe draped over a marble slab. Up top the robes, there's a black skull adorned with opal eyes, sockets, amber shards in place of its teeth. The room emits a faint purple glow and sends a chill through your body. Now, what happens if the players have visited the Amber Temple? If they visited the Amber Temple and they've restored Kazan's memory, this is what you're going to say. The room shimmers in a purple light. A hooded figure materializes in the crypt. Upon removing its hood, the figure is revealed to be Kazan, who raises his hand to produce a staff that crackles with purple and blue lightning. Take this staff, and wield it in your fight against the Dark Lord. He imparts the staff to the adventurers. Remember, never to trust him under any circumstances, as he will use manipulation, deceit, and lies to defeat you. Strahd is far more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Kazan turns and looks at the black skull resting upon the marble slab. He knows that it looks like treasure to the players. He turns to you and he says, "Leave it be. It serves as a means to monitor Strahd and Ravenloft." And then with a nod, Kazan disappears, leaving the staff in the possession of the players. And the room turns back to normal. So this is a staff. The gift is a staff of thunder and lightning that he gives to the player. Very rare, very, very cool weapon that he gives to the players. Again, he's only going to give it to the players if they restored his memory. So you got to restore Xanathar's memory and have him realize he's Kazan in order to get this staff. And you also have to get into this room. Right, you'll know it's this room because it says Kazan, his word has power. Now, let's talk about that skull. There's that opal skull with the gems, worth 1,000 gold pieces. Some players are going to probably want to take it. However, a character who attempts to remove the skull must pass a challenging DC 20 Constitution save. If failure results with the character suffering 2d10 force damage being thrown against the wall. And then you'll hear this booming voice. Fools! Foolish mortals, lured by treasure when you face and you're intertwined with darkness. What are you doing? Kazan's pretty pissed. He should be focusing on Strahd, not trying to steal treasure. Now, any character who successfully steals that skull will soon find, like the next day, the skull has vanished. It returns back to the crypt. The skull is actually a magical skull created by Kazan for him to scry. He uses that skull so that he can see from where he's located in the Amber Temple. See what's going on here in Ravenloft. Keep track of Strahd. That is the purpose of the skull. That's why he tells you to leave it. It's his way of watching Strahd here, and that's what that skull does. So players that take it, they're going to suffer force damage. That's going to disappear from their possession anyway. Okay, the next one we have Leo the Lion, Crypt 16. Now, Leo, again, it's Strahd's bastard brother. There's some great stories that's tied to the Walker family. There's the Toast of Leo quest from the Tesser Pools. He is a new pivotal interesting historical figure in Legends of Barovia, tying both Strahd, the Valkyr family, how the Valkyr family comes to power, and why they're devoted to Strahd. That's all told through Leo's storyline, how he's murdered by his lover. When you enter there into his crypt, there's a bow, a vicious bow, just laying on the crypt. The character who retrieves the bow hears throughout the darkness, which is a whispering of Leo the Lion's voice. Bound by cursed bloodline, betrayed by my brother, slain by my beloved, I beseech you to grant me solace so that I may finally rest. Remember, his brothers betrayed him, his lover has killed him, and he's cursed with a bloodline. It's part von Tsarovich's bloodline and part Vistani. He's never been accepted in the royal court because he's part Vistani. Great storyline. Really love this character. And vicious bow here defined. We get to Crypt 17. That's rules as written. That's the admiral here. Nothing of interest in here. Any gold clay, coins that look like gold. They're just painted clay. Let's get to the next crypt here, which is Crypt 18. Pretty creepy. The door of this one is open. Crypt 18 says Irina, true love. This is the crypt that Strahd has been prepared for her, for Irina. So this is just kind of a reminder of how Irina fits into that entire storyline, what's going on. Now remember, Strahd's not going to use charm or convince her, use any type of ways to make her love him. And he's only going to turn her into a vampire spawn, finally convert her into vampire spawn, if she actually loves him, unrequited love. Because that's what Strahd's missing in his life. That's what he wants. He doesn't want servants. He's done that too many times with too many vampire brides. They mean nothing to him. He needs someone who loves him for who he is, and that's what he's waiting for before he turns her into a vampire spawn. We get to the next crypt here, and this is Artemis's crypt. This is an interesting crypt because Artemis, as we found out in the Amber Temple, in the architecture in which we have the model of Ravenloft, hidden underneath that is the plans to Ravenloft, which is part of that quest line. It's the Ravenloft Plans quest line, which has in there, it can be revealed if you take it to the right person, which is Elder Balin, will show you where the secret entrance is to Ravenloft in the pillar, the rock pillar of Ravenloft. So that's a really cool quest line. Now, in the events the characters have uncovered, Artemis's architectural drawing was the Amber Temple. Remember, Artemis was not a fan of Strahd. He was forced. Artemis's his mentors were murdered by Strahd when he came to the Amber Temple, and Artemis was a architect in training, a wizard architect in training, and so Strahd threatened him, and Artemis built the spires of Ravenloft and everything before he passed away, but he hid the plans to Ravenloft and hid a lot of information from Strahd. So if the players have discovered Artemis's architectural drawings, his voice will whisper to the players, "There's much more to this castle than meets the eye. A concealed room containing great secrets and treasures can be found behind a door wrought with flames." This is a clue, an important clue, because finding Strahd's treasure room is exceedingly difficult. His secret door lies behind the fireplace, the fire in his study. So you have to get rid of the fire to go through and find the secret door, which goes to another secret door, which goes to another secret door to find his treasure room. It's, I would say, unless the players are very, very studious, it's very, very hard to find Strahd's treasure room. So this is just a clue that behind the wall of flame, there's a hidden door that will reveal a big secret. So you have to find the wall of flame, but it's a good clue in here. That's crypt number 19. When we get crypt to number 20, this is Strahd's wife. Now, this is rules as written. There's not much mention about her in Curse of Strahd, other than the fact he has a wife. She married Strahd in 342, dies in 346. She dies a mysterious death. She eats these mushrooms and dies. She's poisoned by mushrooms. Nobody knows if it's an accident. Some people believe that she was assassinated. But it's Strahd's actual wife. Now, we know what happens in year 346. It is the dark year. There's a lot of death in year 346 if you look at the timeline. And if the players read about that through the Lords of Barovia, and they can piece that together again through the court of the Ravenloft. So the woman, the woman in the crypt, the dead woman in the crypt, rises up, and it is Strahd's Strahd's wife, and she's a vampire spawn. So you're gonna have to deal with that there. This is pretty much rules as written, but we've filled in some of her story and her back lore in there. Okay, we get down to the next crypt here, Crypt 21, and this is Petrina, who is the Dusk Elf. And we changed her story, her backstory a little bit in there, in that Strahd, in her mortal life, she's a Dusk Elf. She's the sister of Casimir, who is the Dusk Elf in the village, the Vistani Velaki camp. She was apprehended by Strahd's minion, who believed that she may have been a vessel for Tatiana's soul. Casimir feared that Strahd would transform her into a vampire, could not bear her to let her suffer. He spent months tracking her down, and when she was traveling to Ravenloft in Strahd's carriage one fateful evening, her brother acts without hesitation and runs the carriage off the road, crashing it and killing his sister, preventing Strahd from converting her into a vampire, or if she did have Tatiana's soul, trying to win her over. Now, unbeknownst to Strahd, is Tatiana's soul was not freed to leave her earthly vessel, and she's become tethered to the remains that are in her crypt in Ravenloft. And Casimir has these dreams. She calls out to him in his dreams, pleading for her to be released from this internal prison. Rules as written, she's a banshee, and you can run the entire rules as written. It's just her backstory that's changed. Here she is as a banshee, kind of nasty. And there's also the Casimir's dark gift from rules as written, where if Casimir goes with the party to the Amber Temple, he can find a way to return her to life and end this horrible curse. Her spell book is here, and it's the spell book of an archmage, and she's going to ask if you do return her to life, or if you find the spellbook underneath the mountains of coins that are in here, because it's buried underneath the mountain of coins, she'll ask for it back, and she'll say she needs to remember these spells to help destroy Strahd. Now, that's possibly a lie, and I wanted to leave this up to you as the dungeon master, because rules is written, you kind of run her evil, rules is written. But I thought she's an interesting character that really leaves it up to the creative DM on how they wish to run it. She could be aligned with the party, or she could be aligned against the party, or neutral. And my thought process on this is based on the level of your party. So if you have a weaker party or a less experienced party, and you feel the party needs another NPC to help them, then she could ally with the party. If you feel that the party's way overpowered and it's going to be, pretty much a cakewalk, then she can fool the party and pretend that she's allies with the party at the last minute, turn on the party and attack them. So I would run her either way, and I would rather run her either way. That decision would be based when you get here, and if you go through that process, Casimir's Dark Gift is based on the party's aptitude and their ability, the size of the party, whether you want her as an ally or a hidden enemy. All right. The next one is Crypt 22, and this is rules as written. We've got a nice golden skull in there worth 700 gold pieces in there for the players to find. Crypt 23 is Earl von Hapsburg. This is the Countess Tasha's oldest son. He dies in 346 at the Battle of the Gates of Slinka. And this is a pretty cool scene here. And I want to walk you through this scene because this has changed from rules as written. The crypt is devoid of any furnishing, save for an old faded tapestry which adorns the southern wall. This tapestry depicts a grand wall and gate shrouded in snow, with several female knights standing guard in front of the gate. In the center of the tapestry is a lone male knight kneeling before the female knights. Woven into the tapestry are the words, "Never have few so bravely stood against an evil so great." The resting on the marble slab is a knight in plate armor clutching a longsword. Now, Earl Vernon von Hapsburg perished at the Battle of the Gates of Slinka, where the shield maidens of the Slinka fought valiantly. Now, the character who's familiar with the story, has visited the Gates of Slinka, has read about it through the book Gates of Slinka, will recognize the scene in the tapestry. Will all come to us. Oh, this is Earl Vernon von Hapsburg. He died there with the shield maidens guarding the Gates of Slinka against enemy forces. Very same shield maidens. Now, if the character attempts to take the armor or the sword, you're going to read the following. The room grows frigid cold. A sudden snow flurry begins to fall from nowhere. 3 ghostly shield maidens materialize before the character, their ethereal forms flickering with an icy air, and you hear them speak. If you take our beloved brother in arms, weapon and armor, you must first speak our oath. And then they say, swear to use his power to fight against darkness. And with that, the snow ceases and the ghostly figures vanish. Now, the players are going to have to recite the oath. If they don't recite the oath, the armor and swords are firmly fixed in place. They cannot be removed by any means. They seem to be bound by some powerful magic, and even attempting to touch them sends a chill through your body. Now, the oath is in the book, Battle of the Slinka Gates. It's in the back of the book. It's the oath of the shield maidens. If the players recite the shield maiden oath, that will release the sword, the sword and the armor, and the characters can speak the oath, and they can hear the voices of the shield maidens saying, "We will stand with you always." The armor is an armor of cold resistance plate, which is pretty cool. So it's just plate armor, but with cold resistance for the person that wears this armor. And the sword is a moon touch longsword. So it's a normal longsword properties, but it casts moonlight, bright light, 15-foot radius, and a dim light for another 15 feet. So if you don't have a torch or dark vision, it's a really cool weapon. So these go together. These belong to Earl von Hapsburg, who perished at the Gates of Slinka, the Battle of the Gates of Slinka. We get over to Crypt number 24, and this is another new addition. This is Father Ivan, and this ties into Countess Sarah, who had the Hapsburg, Countess Sarah von Hapsburg, who had the child in Kresk at the Abbey, ties in the Abbey, the entire heir, the Hapsburg line. When the characters enter the room, upon the marble slab, a skeleton clad in tattered remains of priestly vestments, its bony arms crossed over his chest. The rest of the room lies bare. From atop the marble slab, a ghostly figure emerges dressed in the garb of a priest. Though he attempts to smile, his sadness is palpable. Despite his lips remaining unmoving, his words ring out to you as if you were speaking directly to you. And he tells you, what he's going to tell you puts the final pieces of the story together. If the players have learned about what happened to Sarah, Countess Sarah von Hapsburg, her mother Tasha, what happened at the Abbey, St. Markovia, the whole Hapsburg, that whole history where they're destroyed and Strahd comes to power, part of that is revealed here with a big secret if the characters haven't put it all together. During the Great War, Countess Sarah von Hapsburg was with child. At the dead of night, I took her to the Abbey in Kresk where she could give birth in secrecy. The child was to become the heir of Barovia, but if anyone had discovered their true identity, both mother and child would have been killed. The Countess and her mother, Countess Tasha, ordered me to take the child over the snow-covered mountains far from Barovia to ensure the child's safety. Upon my return to Barovia, I discovered all was lost. The Hapsburg family had been slaughtered, and a new lord now ruled over the land. I remained in service to the new master, keeping with me the greatest secrets of all, that the Hapsburg bloodline lives on, and one day they shall return to claim their rightful place as the true heirs of Barovia. Uncover the truth by seeking out Brother Valen's prayer book. It may still be housed within the Abbey, waiting to be discovered. Use this knowledge contained within to locate the Hapsburg bloodline and restore them to the rightful place. So if you're going to pursue the Hapsburg quest bloodline, the book, Brother Valen's prayer book, has the story of Sister Markovia, Countess, the baby, all of that's in there. And then finding the ring hidden in the crypt, Countess Tasha's crypt there, which ties to another crypt here. So you can see how this crypt's tying to the Abbey. It's tied to the Wizards of Wine. All of this is slowly tying together the crypt and the dungeon, bringing the whole story. I imagine this crypt and the catacombs are really bringing the story to life. It's bringing all the clues and the puzzles pieces together at this final moment as the players are searching through there. Things are starting to all make sense at this point, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, Crypt 25. This is rules as written. I made some slight changes to it. This is the skull in here of Stefan. He was the first counselor of Ravenloft. You can read about him and this crypt in the book, The Court of Ravenloft. Now, he was a counselor of Ravenloft. He was a cunning strategist. Though not inherently loyal to Strahd, he is not one to divulge information freely. So if you touch the skull and you get to ask it 5 questions, he may choose to share some details, but be prepared to obfuscate and err on the side of mystery around the truth. He is murdered. You learn about his murder along with another person in the book, Court of Ravenloft. We have Crypt 26. This is Earl Julius von Hapsburg. This is the young son. He's murdered at the age of 10, poisoned by the Turk forces. There's nothing in here of interesting other than the fact this is a child's crypt. The books on the floor are children's books filled with fantasy stories of dragons and great battles. It's a sad story that he was murdered, accidentally murdered. The poisoning was trying to poison Count von Hapsburg, and they poison his 10-year-old son, and he dies. He's buried here in the year 320. Next to that crypt is his sister, Countess Sarah von Hapsburg. She's the one that had the child in secret at the Abbey. She's murdered outside the Abbey with her mother, and she's buried her here. The crypt is shrouded with a thick layer of cobwebs and dust, giving the impression that it's been untouched for ages. Upon the marble slab, now covered in cobwebs, lies the skeleton remains of a young woman. Now, rules as written, we still kept the 3 giant wolf spiders in here, and they infest otherwise. If the 3 giant wolf spiders, and here they are, we'll just bring them to life, those nasty wolf spiders. If those 3 giant wolf spiders are killed, you hear a faint whisper of a young girl's voice reaching your ears, thanking you to rid the crypt of the horrid spiders that disturb her eternal rest. She speaks of her child, whom she believes to be alive somewhere, and implores you to seek him out and restore him to a rightful place on the throne. She speaks of an usurper, Lord of Barovia, Strahd, clearly indicating her child's claim to the throne has been taken. So this is, again, she died in the year 345, was murdered at the Abbey. Her child lived on. The bloodline still lives on. So this is tying you to the bloodline, ties you back to Crypt 324, as well as to her mother's crypt. We get into Crypt 28. This is the chef's crypt. Again, this is rules as written, and I got another cool Monk's Act tile trigger in here, so let's check this one out. So this one is, again, a double click to trigger, and I have it also triggering slightly outside of the crypt as well. So if the players go in here, again, this one fills with fire. Let's check it out, see how it looks. Oh. There we go. Some nasty fire damage in there. And the character will take 2d10 worth of damage. A surge of magical fire erupts within the crypt, spreading outwards towards the entrance. Any creature within the area suffers damage from the intense heat. However, the flames quickly dissipate, leaving behind only a faint hint of their previous presence. So there we go there. So this, all you have to do on this one again is double click, and the fire comes in there and just burns up everything in that room. And it burns for 10 seconds, and it rolls the dice and does the damage. All right, the next crypt is Crypt 29. This is with the brown mold in here. the brown mold is immune to fire damage. People are going to have to make a Constitution saving throw, DC 12. Otherwise, you're going to suffer 4d10 cold damage on a failed save. If you destroy the brown mold and scrape all of it out, and it's going to take a while to do so, they're going to find one of the most craziest items in all of Ravenloft, of Curse of Strahd. They're going to find a Luckblade sword in here. This is rules as written, and it wasn't clear in the rules as written to me, but it says it had one charge only, but it didn't tell you if it got to recharge. And I took the recharge out. This is just such an insane weapon. So it has one charge only. That's it. It doesn't recharge. I don't really care what it said in rules as written, but it doesn't recharge. You get one charge. That's it. Because it gives you the wish spell. However, if you use this wish spell to wish your way out of Barovia, the spell fails. If you wish the thing to destroy Strahd or kill Strahd or damage Strahd, all it does is it brings Strahd, teleports Strahd to within 5 feet of the sword. So it says, I want to destroy Strahd or wish Strahd was dead or whatever. It's like, okay, kill him. And it teleports Strahd within 5 feet of the blade. Otherwise, it operates as a wish spell. I personally, you can leave this in there. It's kind of hard to find because they have to get rid of all that brown mold, dig through it, and then dig under the corpse and they'll find it. So I would make this very, very difficult to find. Personally, I think the wish spell is a little too powerful, maybe for this particular campaign, but you might want to leave it in there. Just make the Luckblade very, very difficult to find. All right, we get to the next row here, and we have the prefect, the high priest in most holy order. Now, he's pretty interesting because what we've done with him is he was good, but he's turned to evil. And there are stories of him in the court of Ravenloft that as Strahd became evil and he was serving as the high priest here at Ravenloft, that he too became, was blasphemous to the Morning Lord and became evil. So he's lying in there and he has 2 orbs, a black orb and a white orb. And what these 2 orbs are with him they are the physical manifestation between good and evil. This balance that he is trying to maintain, because perhaps deeply in his heart he always wished to be a good priest to the Morning Lord, but he had done probably some horrible things under Strahd's tutelage and the relationship that he had with Strahd. So the way I set this up is that the white orb unleashes blinding radiant that deals 2d10 radiant damage to all creatures in 5 feet if an evil creature touches it. So if an evil creature touches the white orb, 2d10, boom, radiates 5 feet around. Everybody takes 2d10 worth of radiant damage. If the black orb is touched by a good creature, it does 2d10 of force damage to all creatures within 5 feet around. The orbs hold no material value whatsoever, other than the fact that they are the embodiment of this struggle between good and evil that defined the high priest. So black orb, good person touches the black orb, force damage. Bad person, evil person touches the white orb, radiant damage. So it's good versus evil, and it depends on who touches what. Removing the orbs, they have no value, and that's pretty much all they do. Of course, you can homebrew something into it if you want to. If you think it's cool too, feel free. Crypt 31 is a pit trap, and I called the crypt the Wealthy Gentleman. Now, the floor in this particular pit is a locking mechanism. So the pit goes like this. The characters fall down. They're going to suffer 2d10 piercing damage, 3d6 falling damage, and it's going to slam back shut. And let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and throw me, because obviously my character likes to take all this damage. Here I am. Just make sure I got some health there. Oh, let's open up this crypt. Oh, what's in there? Now again, the pit trap words, all that's invisible. The players can't see that. They're going to go in there and go, hey, that's pretty interesting. Well, let's bring up the chat box so you can see what happens here. The entire Monk's Tolkien effect. Here we go. What's in here? I fall down. You fall through a spring-loaded trap 30 feet onto metal spikes, suffering both fall damage and piercing damage from the spikes. So there you go. You fall down there. I took 10 damage on the 3d6 damage, and I took 15 piercing damage, and it's already deducted that from me. I'm down to 10 hit points. I'm not doing so well here, wandering around the catacombs. Let's talk about this for a second. In the pit, there's a bullseye lantern, crowbar, hempen rope, dagger, pouch, a map scroll, and in the map scroll is a spell scroll magic circle. So there is advantage down here. What's nice about this trap, however, even though you're 30 feet down, the person that's down at the bottom does have some tools if they didn't have them with them. The crowbar, the hempen rope, both will be helpful to try to get them out. Now, I put some of the stuff in here about the locking mechanism, the strength check trying to break open that locking mechanism, or the player trying to figure out how to unlock it and open it from down below. This is going to require some problem solving and creative thinking from your players, and I've got the instructions on how the locking mechanism works in here. While one character is down here in the pit, dealing with this, the other characters are going to be up there, unless another character foolishly walks in and falls through the pit. Who knows? All right, we got the teleportation, number 32, and I just wrote Lord of Barovia over the door. I thought it'd be great just to put Lord of the Barovia. It's like, oh. So when you go in there, crypt's devoid of any context except for 2 alcoves located at the back wall. Engraved above the alcoves are the ominous words, ye foolish mortals, do not pass through these portals. This is a portal, teleportation portal. It's one of the only 2 easy ways into Strahd's chamber. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and walk into his chamber, and I'm going to show you how this works. Before I do, let me show you the walls. I put a glass wall here because when you teleport back out of Strahd's chamber, you come here, and it's so easy the player accidentally hits their left arrow and walks or mouses in here and walks and just teleports back and forth. So I put a glass wall there to keep that from happening. That's why that glass wall is there. So you go in here, and if you teleport, boom, you show up inside Strahd's crypt. And if you want to teleport back, you go to this side, and boom, you're back inside here. So it's pretty cool. Teleport to Strahd's crypt, teleport from Strahd's crypt. This is probably the easiest way in and out of Strahd's crypt versus anything. Again, you're going to have to open up the door to get in here, figure this out, and then you're going to be teleported into Strahd's crypt. Obviously, Strahd knows this, right? He knows about this methodology of getting in and out of his crypt. So this is going to be something he's going to be protective of. If the players find out about this, this is something he's not going to be happy about. So think about how you want to run that in your encounter. The next crypt is pretty interesting, and we left this rules as written, and I kind of like this because if you there's a on the marble surface in crypt number 33, the knight has this sword through his breastplate, and if you remove the sword, a phantom warrior appears, and here he is. But he doesn't attack you. Whoever pulled the weapon free agrees to fight alongside the Phantom Warrior along the character for the next 7 days. So now you've got an automatic ally. You've got a Phantom Warrior now that's going to fight alongside the party for the next several days. He doesn't know. Now remember, he died at 346. He died, in fact, at the Battle of Brez. Prior to Strahd becoming a vampire, Strahd didn't become a vampire until 350. So he has no idea that Strahd's a vampire. But he will fight along your side. So if you pull the sword out, you guys got an ally here. Phantom Warrior ally, pretty cool. All right. The next crypt over here is the crypt of the first king, the horrible king of Barovia from the year 1 to year 81. In the heart of the crypt is a striking sight. A 7-foot long gilded sarcophagus dominates the room. Its lid bears a vivid depiction of a crowned king in agony. His expression is contorted into a scream. A crown adorned with ominous thorns. Positioned behind the sarcophagus is a statue of an owlbear stand frozen in a fierce roar, his talons stretched out, creating an imposing presence. Now, rules is written, it's just a stuffed owlbear standing there. It was just kind of stuck there, and it's kind of silly. I make this an actual real owlbear that comes to life. So the lid, I changed it. The lid itself is worth 10,000 gold. but it weighs 600 pounds. It's almost impossible to move. So the sarcophagus itself is black marble, but the lid is solid gold. It weighs 600 pounds. Anyone who tries to remove the lid or steal the gold will awaken the owlbear. Now, invisible on the owlbear's shoulder is an imp, and it speaks in common, and it says, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." And it kind of antagonizes the player, warning the player, "Don't do that. Don't open that. Don't take that gold. It doesn't belong to you." If they do, now the players are going to be fighting this owlbear here. So you got a nice owlbear here to fight. We thought it'd be really cool to have an owlbear in here. Now you got an owlbear to fight in here. So it's just not some stuffed owlbear anymore. You got to have an owlbear. It's D&D, right? All right. Let's go to the last row before we get to the crypts. So we've got another pit trap here. And this pit trap this is a nasty one. This is probably the worst pit trap in the whole game, in the whole crypt. Oh, I didn't mean, he just teleported in here. Let's get him in here. Here we go. So he's going to go over to this pit trap. Stupid Pyram, he doesn't know what he's doing. And this particular pit trap, the floor is invisible. You don't know. And so the crypt lies bare, and there's a putrid smell of decaying flesh filling the air, making it difficult to breathe. The floor is an illusion. So if you step into this pit trap, let me open the door so I can go in. If you step in the pit trap, boom. Do you guys hear that? When you step into the pit trap, as you step forward, the ground beneath you gives way and you plummet 20 feet into darkness. So you're going to take that 2d6 worth of fall damage. The impact jars your bones. Musty air knocks you out of your lungs. As you struggle to catch your breath, you hear this guttural groaning sound emitting from the shadows. A stench of decay overwhelms you and your eyes begin to water. And you are surrounded now by 6 of these nasty looking ghouls. Look at this. You got 6 nasty ghouls down here in this pit to fight. It's just really nasty and smelly. In fact, let's hear them again. I put a little sound effect in there so when you fall through, you can actually hear the ghouls. Like, they're all excited. Ghouls are pretty hungry. They're all excited. They got some fresh meat. Meat's back on for the dinner, boys. Got to deal with that nasty trap. So if you fall down there by themselves, you know, these ghouls, not a lot of hit points for those late game players, you know, but you know, we're talking about action economy. 6 ghouls, not going to be fun to deal with. Okay, the next one is Crypt 36, and this is Falcon von Hapsburg's crypt. And this is an important crypt because he was the Lord of Barovia. If you've been following Legends of Barovia, the players have been learning about the lore, the history, how Strahd came to power. They're going to learn all about Count von Hapsburg, who was a true friend of the people of Barovia. Really cool new item in here, homebrew item in here. So as you step in, the faded frescoes of epic battles adorn the 3 walls of the crypt. While on the southern wall, a knight in shining plate armor rides triumphantly on his horse, sword raised high under a beam of sunlight. And at the center of the chamber, marble slab, holds a dusty skeleton adorned with the same armor as the knight in the fresco. Resting on his chest, clasped by both gauntlet hands, is a great sword. Now, as soon as a character tries to remove the plate armor, the plate armor or the great sword from the skeleton hand of the armor comes to life and grabs the character by the wrist and speaks in a deep, ominous voice, and it says, "I will not stop you from taking my treasured possessions, but be aware the burden that comes with them. You must use them wisely to defeat the darkness that has consumed Barovia. If you fail this task, I will haunt your every waking moment with nightmares and regret, and you will live to regret the day you ever dared take what is mine." So he is impressing upon you the severity of taking his stuff. Right, that he's expecting you to do what he could not, and that's to defeat the Dark Lord Strahd. Now, what is this armor? Well, von Hapsburg's plate armor of peace. I really like this armor. So this is plate armor, and it's just, it seems to be normal plate armor, which seems cool, but it's legendary plate armor. It's his armor. And this allows you to enter a state of tranquility and serenity by speaking its command word as an action. During this time, which lasts for 1 minute, you gain the benefit of the Calm Emotions spell. And while in this state, you are completely cut off from the mortal plane. You cannot be attacked. Your equipment and any ongoing effects remain with you. No one in the mortal world can perceive your presence or determine your location. However, you are also completely unaware of any events going on in the mortal world during this 1 minute time. When the 1 minute duration ends, you return to the mortal plane at the exact location where you entered the state of peace. So this, I imagine, Falcon von Habsburg ruled over Barovia for some time. He was a good lord. The people of Barovia loved him. He was close friends with Lord Argynvost. And so this magic armor, speaking the command word, takes him to this place of tranquility and peace, a moment for him to be at peace and and gaining the benefit of the Calm Emotion spell. I imagine he used this command word, this magic, in some epic battles to give him this moment, this reprieve from the horror, the onslaught of the Great War that went on for over 20 years. And then when the Dark Lord came and made things worse. Very, very cool piece of armor. Normal armor, but imagine you get that, it only works once a day. The plate armor can only be used once per day, and it can only be tuned by good aligned characters. So if it's a neutral or evil aligned character, it doesn't work. However, if an evil aligned character decides to wear this armor, they're going to suffer disadvantage on attacks and saving throws. So it only works for a good aligned character, obviously. And I think it's really cool. I mean, it doesn't give you any bonuses or any defense bonuses, but getting that minute of reprieve. I mean, I can imagine you're in battle, man. You're wearing this armor. You're like, man, I'm taking some bad hits here. I'm going to go down. Command word action. Boom. You're a minute out of combat. You're getting that command word, you're getting that Calm Emotion spell, and you got this moment, this breathing moment, this moment of tranquility and peace. You're just like, whew, I'm in the middle of the shit right now, and I'm able to take a breather. That's what this armor does, is it gives you that breathing room there. The sword that Falcon von Habsburg have is a great sword +1. So some really epic, cool stuff here in von Habsburg's Crypt. Really love this. I really like his storyline as well, as you can probably tell. Crypt number 37 is rules as written, a wizard. There's a magic scroll case in here. It's got 3 spells in it. It's got a Cone of Cold, Fireball spell, and a spell scroll with Lightning Bolt. There's a brass knob here. You have to open up the crypt to do this. So if you open it up the wrong way, you're going to take 40-10 worth of lightning damage. You open it up the right way, the crypt opens. You get access to these magic spells. The next one is, again, rules as written. This one has got the 3 hellhounds in it. If you go in there, you're going to be waking up 3 hellhounds. It's not going to be fun dealing with those guys. These hellhounds are pretty nasty. 45 hit points each. Fire breath recharge. I mean, they're going to be blasting fire out of this crypt for sure. So not going to be fun dealing with the hellhounds. And we got our 2 more here. We got our last crypt here, or second to last crypt, which is Strahd's Nightmare Horse. So a lot of people were asking me before, how does Strahd travel around Barovia? He does have that teleportation circle to and from Vallaki from Vasily's Manor, but he has a Nightmare Horse. He flies around Barovia on his Nightmare Horse. I think the Nightmare gets 90 feet flying speed. And it itself is a nasty beast. It has more hit points. It's been bumped up to 104 hit points. It does have the hoof attack and the stride there. It's just it's a really cool horse. It's Strahd's horse. It's how he gets around Barovia sometimes. He uses that if he's not going to be in his carriage. I mean, he's going to take his carriage if he's going to be traveling with Rotterdam. They need to talk about some business in Vallaki or whatever. Otherwise, he might be riding this horse around. The last crypt. I didn't like this last crypt, rules as written. I thought it was just kind of a waste. So I changed it. And I thought it was pretty cool. I thought this last crypt is a philosophical crypt, right? It's a heavy crypt. The crypt is called the Crypt of the Unknown Soldier. Here lies the nameless, faceless who have served without question. So if a character enters, what happens is this. You enter the crypt, your eyes are drawn to the flickering light of 3 torches, casting a dancing shadows on the walls. In the center of the room, a marble slab holds the remains of a skeletal figure in old armor. Suddenly, the walls start to fade away, and you find yourself surrounded by a vast, expansive battlefield spanning centuries. You witness these vicious fights of countless soldiers just battling it out, and you feel all their struggles and their personal stories. And when the battle comes to a halt, the soldiers all turn towards you. Their eyes are filled with wariness. The crypt is now filled with spectral forms of countless soldiers donning various armors from different ages of war. Their collective voices fill the airs with cries and agonies, shame, horror, sadness, and in unison they declare, "You must choose between the path of righteousness or the path of your heart's desires. The path you take only be known if we never meet again in the afterlife. For if we do, you will know that you chose the path that may have served you in life, but will have cost you dearly in death." And the spirits gradually fade away into the ether, leaving you with a very, very heavy, important decision. So this is kind of that, I imagine this may be the last crypt that your characters get into. And it's like, okay, do I do the path of righteousness and make the righteousness decisions, or do I follow my own personal heart's desire? The crypt has nothing of value other than this deep kind of philosophical message, which I thought was pretty heady and weighty coming into the end of the campaign here. Now, let's go up to Sergei's crypt, which is at the top, and then we'll do the King's crypt, and then we'll end with Strahd. So Sergei's crypt up here. I mean, look how beautiful this map is that Diamandi did. I really like it. It even's got Sergei's name in here. This is just really, really cool. So Sergei's crypt is got really nothing in there other than Sergei's armor. You can raise the break through the thing, get in there, and he's got his +2 to armor in there. I didn't make a lot of this because I have Sergei's spirit in the magic pool at Kresk, and it's his soul that goes into the hilt of the sun sword, and so it's the sentient blade, the sentientness of the sun sword through that quest is Sergei trying to take vengeance on Strahd. So the real heavy Sergei story is with the sun sword, the hilt, and the quest that all takes place in that magic pool at Kresk. So I pretty much left this untouched, but it's open to you. If you as the DM want to add more to it, sure. Sergei's armor is +2 plate. It's there. Pretty cool. I've got Sergei's tomb here. Let's take a look. There's Sergei's tomb. So you can do a theater of the mind if you want to. Let's go to the Queen and King's chamber. I've got a vision of the Queen and King's chamber here. Before we get there, you have to get into the Queen and Queen's chamber. Let me show you how I did that. So again, let me grab myself and put myself here. So the Guardians here, the way this works is it's a one-way wall. And the way I did that is I put a glass wall through the center that you can only pass one way through. So if I try to go this way through the wall, I'm not going to be able to do it, right? I'm blocked. So lawful good characters can move west to east through the curtain wall without difficulty, but creatures without other alignments do so are teleported back to the back of the stairs. I didn't put a teleport, I just made it so they couldn't get through it. So what you're going to need to do as a DM is, if it's a good long character, just drag them through the wall, and then they're through the wall, they can go through. Now, I did leave space because it did mention that a small character could go around and try to get through the other side. Otherwise, I made this one-way wall. By the way, they can go easily this way. They just can't go the other way. So you can go this way. I have to drag you through. You can go east to west. You just can't go west to east. It's a block. So you have to drag the player through. Now, when we get down to the King and Queen's tomb, and let's take a look at that. I got the King and Queen's tomb right here. There's nothing much of interest here, except if you're running the Fey quest and you've hidden the blue gem in the Queen's tomb, her skeleton will be clutching the gem. And by removing the gem, the characters will hear the whisper from the Queen, My son, my beloved child, you've entered a realm of darkness, taken the life of your own brother, abandoned your kin, and have become lost. I implore you to put an end to this rule of darkness. So the mother's desperately heartbroken of all the things that her son Strahd has done. And the blue gem is here. Again, I left this as rules as written, fairly empty. If you want to add something in here, you can. I think there's already quite a bit here in the dungeons and in the crypt. Feel free to do that, but this, again, you might have the blue gem hidden here in the crypt. And that leaves us with Strahd's chamber. Now, Strahd's chamber is pretty interesting, rules as written, because there's a trap here. And let me show you this trap, because this trap is so cool. And this took me a little while with Monk's tile trigger to figure out. So this trap works is there's 3 teleportation traps. And the way the trap works, rules as written, is if you step into one of these squares, right, you'll be teleported down into that space with those down into that cavern where all those stone coffins are, where the whites are. And one of the whites, you end up in the coffin, and the white replaces you. And so I actually did that entire mechanism with Monk's tile triggers, and I'll show you how that works. So you, the character, travel here and go, hey, now again, you can't see this. This is all invisible. This is just for the DM to see. You can go, hey, there's Strahd's tomb. I'm going to go. Boom. You show up here. You hear that sound. That's the scary teleportation sound. You show up here, and what Monk's tile trigger does is it makes you invisible. That means you can't see anything. You are in a crypt. So you're going to explain to the character. I think I actually put it in the text. As you step forward, the ground beneath you gives way, and you plummet 20 feet into the darkness. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. I did put it in all of them. I have to put that text in there. What happens is you wake up inside the crypt. So I made you invisible so that the player, when the player shows up, it's just blackness. They don't see anything. So you're going to tell the player, your body is restrained. You cannot move. You're laying on your back. The player's going to have to figure out, they don't know where they are. They don't know that they're here. They can't see anything because, again, you've made them invisible. Let's get rid of my other guy here. That you've made them invisible. Oh, where did I lost my, there we go. I made them invisible so the player can't see anything. At the same time, gosh, I'm all over the place, aren't I? At the same time, look what's appeared here. So this happens at the same time. The player character, and I'll do it again with me. Let me just grab me, and I'll just drag myself over here. Okay, I'll do it again this way. Okay, I'm visible. I'm going to go, hey, I'm just going to go check out Strahd's tomb. You walk in here. The character token is turned invisible. They're in the crypt. They can't see anything. And guess what's going on over at the crypt? Another one of these whites appeared. So that's the way this worked. Now, what I did was I put a toggle button here so you can turn it off and on because you can, in the teleportation, let me see, I think it's right here. The teleportations, these 3 teleportation blocks right here are invisible, and you can't get rid of them. The traps can't be disarmed, but if you cast a spell of magic, DC 16, the traps suppresses the magic for 1 minute, allowing the carriers to move safely through the area. The players aren't going to be able to notice it's there until one of them triggers. They're not going to just dispel magic on something they don't know that's there. This is just a nasty, nasty trap because anybody that's left behind, that player's going to be stuck down there in that pit. And these players are going to be up here dealing with these whites. It's going to be really hard trying to go head first into Strahd's tomb. That brings us into Strahd's tomb itself. Now we know there's 3 ways into Strahd's tomb. Actually, there is 1, 2, 3 ways. Yeah, we got the teleportation up here. We talked about you teleport here, you show up here, and then down here you can teleport and then go back out. It's way number 1. Way number 2 is over here in the Brazen. Remember, one of the stones, I forget which one, takes you to Strahd's tomb. The yellow stone takes you to Strahd's tomb. And you show up, you would teleport right here to the top of the steps. The third way is figuring out how to get past these 3 teleportation traps, which is going to be really hard to do. Now, once you're in here in Strahd's tomb, and I got a vision of Strahd's tomb. Let's take a look at it. Here's Strahd's tomb here. This is my Theater of the Mind map of Strahd's tomb. Once you're in Strahd's tomb, what I did was they have the three vampire brides in Strahd's tomb, and I removed them because, as we know, Lamilla now is at the tower trying to be the queen. I'm writing some additional content for Valenta and Anastasia. We know Anastasia has been acting kind of regal. She's the one that brought Gratuita to Ravenloft, and I've got and Valenta was an adventurer at one time. So I've got some storylines for both of those two that I'll be sharing shortly. So I don't put the vampire brides down here. It's kind of just demeaning to have them coming up out of the dirt, right? It's like after all the stuff that they've been through and the really cool backstories that they have, it's like they come up out of the dirt. So I just replaced the 3 vampire brides with just 3 vampire spawns who come up out of the dirt to fight Strahd. Now, before you even run the crypts, and before you do this, I created a guide to Strahd von Zarovich. It's a PDF guide on how to run Strahd, some suggestions on running him, combat, areas of combat, including his crypt, including the catacombs and all that. There's a link here to it. I highly, highly recommend read through that guide before you run any combat or before your characters get in to the crypt. I just want to show you Strahd's cell down here. If I move these here, again, this is DM Andy's attention to detail. You can see where the three vampire spawns are buried here. They're underneath the ground right here. So I got the 3 vampire spawns. Again, if you want to use the brides, feel free to use the brides. I just had vampire spawns. I imagine Strahd's not going to have his brides in the dirt down here because we have them doing so many more important things. And certainly Lamilla is not going to be laying in the dirt. She plans on being queen of Barovia. So these are just vampire spawns down here. That's all I've got down here for that. But you can see it's very, very difficult to get down in here. Well, that's it. That covers all of the catacombs, every single crypt, the dungeons, the torture room, all the different crypts, including Strahd's, Sergei's, and the parents' tomb. I hope you really, really enjoyed this. Again, we've been releasing the free PDF guides to every one of those. You can find those on the website. If you want to follow me and keep track of any updates, new releases, go to the Ko-fi page, click follow me. You can follow me. I'm releasing stuff every single week, actually multiple things a week. Stay tuned for some more detailed video timestamp guide. And for those that are enjoying the Foundry Adventure modules, I hope you really like this one. I really liked using Monk active tile triggers, making it a little bit easy for you to manage. Until next time, may all your rolls be critically successful.